Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
This time we're going, kind of deep, I guess. We're going into the world of ants. But as always with these deep dives, there's more to it than meets the eye. Right?
Oh, absolutely. This is not just your average ant farm.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've got some sources here that are painting this really vivid picture of a colony that's kind of teetering on the brink. We've got heists.
Yeah.
We've got queens. We even have a ladybug playing a pretty crucial role.
Wow.
So are you intrigued?
Oh, I'm hooked already.
Okay, good.
I'm really interested to see how these seemingly, simple stories about ants can actually reflect some of the, more complex things we see in our own societies, like power struggles or competing ideologies.
Yeah.
And that constant battle between what individuals want and what the group needs.
Right, and that's a great point because this story really kind of throws you into that right away.
Totally.
So our main character is Axel. He's a worker ant. And he kind of stumbles upon this plot to steal the colony's food. Now, it's not just any ordinary theft, right? Like, these food stores are actually sacred offerings to these forest spirits. And they're really important to keep the whole ecosystem balanced.
Wow.
When you think about that, it really kind of makes you think about, how even our small actions can have huge ripple effects.
It does, and it reminds me of that whole tragedy of the commons idea, where when people only care about themselves, they can end up using up all the things everyone needs.
Right.
And we see that so much in our own world, right?
Totally.
Like with the environment and even with money and stuff.
Right. And so in this story, it's this group of rogue ants that are kind of the ones that are driving all of this.
Okay.
And we don't know exactly why they're doing it yet.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, it could mean really bad news for everyone in the colony.
Right.
And maybe even beyond that.
And the surrounding, areas and everything.
It's pretty high stakes.
Yeah. It is. And what's interesting is that the story doesn't just say, oh, these ants are evil.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder why they might be doing this.
Right.
Is it because they're greedy?
Yeah.
Or maybe desperate? Or could they think they're actually doing something good?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like, it would be easy just to label them as the bad guys and move on.
Yeah.
But I think it's more interesting to see how the story looks at it from their side, too.
I agree.
So where does Axel fit into all of this? He's not just sitting back and watching this all happen, is he?
No, not at all. Axel's like this classic reluctant hero, he gets thrown into the situation where he has to be brave and smart.
Okay.
And he sets out to stop this heist,
Mm-hmm.
and his journey takes him through some really dangerous places.
Yeah.
But the cool part is he's not alone.
Okay.
He meets this ladybug named Leela.
A ladybug.
Yeah.
What can a ladybug do?
Well, that's what I thought, too.
Yeah.
But, Leela is really important.
Right.
She can see things from a different angle, literally. Yeah. She's up high, so she can see the big picture.
Oh, I see. Like she's in his eye in the sky.
Exactly. And I think it's like a reminder for us, too, that sometimes we need to get different perspectives to really understand things.
Yeah.
Work with people who have different skills and experiences.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And it sounds like this heist is just the beginning.
Right.
Like there's this whole other conflict going on outside the colony.
Yeah.
The ant wars. What can you tell us about that?
Oh, the ant wars.
Yeah.
Well, so there's these two rival colonies that are fighting over territory.
Okay.
Now, it's normal for ants to fight sometimes.
Yeah.
They compete for food and space.
Yeah.
But in this story, something feels off.
Like someone's behind it all.
Yeah, exactly. The sources kind of hint at this shadowy figure who's manipulating everything, making these colonies fight each other.
For their own benefit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, who is this figure and how are they controlling entire colonies?
Okay, this is getting good. It's like an ant thriller.
I know, right?
So how does Axel end up in the middle of all of this?
Well, remember how I said he's like the hero?
Yeah.
Well, his story is way bigger than just stopping one heist.
Right.
He becomes this symbol of hope.
Okay.
Trying to bring everyone together when everything's falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the physical dangers he has to deal with.
Right.
There's all these alliances and betrayals.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot.
I bet. And I'm guessing Leela and her, aerial view is still pretty important here.
Oh, absolutely. She's vital.
Yeah.
But even the best allies can't solve everything.
Right.
And Axel's going to have to make some tough choices on his own.
Okay, so we've got a heist that could mess up the environment. We've got colonies going to war.
Mm-hmm.
We've got this mysterious figure pulling strings.
Yep.
I'm already hooked.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next?
Well, this is where things take a really unexpected turn.
Okay.
Just when you think it can't get any worse.
Oh.
This disease starts spreading through the colony. It's like nothing they've ever seen before.
What?
It's spreading fast and leaving a lot of destruction.
It's like an ant-apocalypse. This got dark fast.
Right. And it makes you think about, those big questions.
Yeah.
Like, where did this disease come from? Is it natural or is something else going on?
Yeah.
And how is Axel going to deal with this on top of everything else?
Well, I mean, he doesn't just give up, does he?
No, he doesn't give up. But finding a cure for this thing is going to push him to his limits. And it'll lead him to discover secrets that will change everything for these ants.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued.
Right.
We're going to have to pause our deep dive here for now. But make sure you come back for part 2, where we're going to dig into this whole ant-apocalypse thing.
Yes.
We'll learn where this disease came from and follow Axel as he tries to find a cure.
Can't wait.
See you then.
See you then.
Okay, so we're back, and things are not looking good for Axel and the colony.
No, not really.
We left off with this mysterious disease just ravaging everyone.
Right.
On top of everything else going on. It's amazing how this story uses these fictional ants to show how we feel about things in the real world, right?
Yeah, totally.
Like, I mean, another pandemic is not something I want to go through again.
No, thank you.
Right.
Yeah, it's a really clever way to show, those feelings of fear and uncertainty and how people react when they feel like everything's falling apart. Yeah. What's interesting to me is how this disease just, throws everything off in the colony, all their routines, their whole way of life, it all gets messed up.
And our sources describe it as just chaos.
Yeah.
Ants are dropping in the middle of what they're doing. Everyone's panicking.
Totally.
Nobody knows what to do.
And it kind of reminds us that even the best organized groups can be totally thrown off by stuff they can't control.
Right, and it's in these moments, right, when everything's falling apart that you see who the real leaders are. What I find fascinating is how Axel steps up.
Yes.
Not because he wants power or anything.
Right.
But because he genuinely wants to protect his community.
That idea of putting other people first, that's like a really powerful thing.
Totally. We see it all the time, right?
Yeah.
During wars, natural disasters, even just everyday people helping each other.
Exactly.
So, okay, we've got Axel, our reluctant hero, now facing this terrifying new threat.
Right.
What does he do?
Well, he doesn't just try to, stop the disease from spreading.
Right.
He knows he has to find a way to stop it completely.
Okay.
And his journey to find a cure is kind of like humanity's own search for knowledge.
I like that.
Yeah.
So how does he even start to find this cure?
Okay, well, this is where things get a little bit mythical.
Okay.
Remember that ancient scroll he found?
Yeah, the one that said why those food stores were so important.
Right, that one. It also talks about this legendary plant that can supposedly cure anything.
Whoa.
And it's like that classic story,
Yeah.
The hero goes off to find a magical cure in a faraway place.
I love it. So we've got this mix of the real stuff, like how the ants are struggling and the disease itself.
Right.
But then we've got this fantasy element, too.
Totally. It makes things really interesting.
Yeah. And Leela, the ladybug, she's still with him.
Oh, absolutely. She's more important than ever.
Yeah, her flying must be really helpful here.
Oh, totally. They're going into totally unknown territory now.
Right.
Facing crazy dangers, and Leela's the only one who can see what's going on from above.
It's like she's the scout.
Exactly. And it shows how important it is to have different skills on your team. You can't always just rely on what you know.
So true. Okay. Tell me more about this journey. What kind of stuff do they have to go through?
Well, imagine a landscape that's nothing like the ant colony.
Oh.
Trees are these giant obstacles. Streams turn into raging rivers.
Whoa.
And little insects become like monsters.
Yeah.
It's a place where even the smallest thing can kill you.
It sounds intense. And while they're dealing with all that, I bet Axel's got a lot on his mind, too.
Oh, definitely. He's carrying the weight of his whole colony.
Right? If he fails, everyone's doomed.
It's a lot of pressure.
It is. And, I mean, does he ever just want to give up?
Well, it's like that classic hero thing, right?
Yeah.
You feel responsible, you're scared of failing, everything's at stake. But what I find cool is that Axel never loses hope.
Oh?
He keeps going because of his loyalty to the colony, his friendship with Leela, and just his belief that a cure is out there.
That's really inspiring.
Yeah.
It's even when things are really bad, there's always hope.
Exactly.
So they're facing these crazy landscapes, these scary creatures, all this pressure.
Yeah.
Do they actually find this magical plant?
They do.
They do.
But that's just the start of their problem.
Oh, no.
The plant is guarded by creatures that are straight out of a myth.
Oh,
Axel has to use all his courage and smarts to survive.
So they finally get this plant rush back to the colony, and everyone's saved, right?
Haha. If only it were that easy.
I knew it. There's a catch.
There's always a catch.
So what is it?
Well, remember those shadowy figures we talked about?
Yeah, the ones behind the ant wars.
Right. Well, they've been watching this whole time.
Oh, cool.
And they don't want Axel to succeed.
But they don't.
No. They want to control the ant world, not save it.
So it's not just about stopping the disease.
Right.
It's about fighting these guys who are trying to stop the cure.
Yeah, it's getting complicated.
It really is.
Yeah.
So what are these guys all about anyway?
It makes you think, right?
Mm-hmm.
What makes people want power so much?
Yeah.
Is it greed? Do they think they know better than everyone else?
Yeah. And it shows how sometimes the worst enemies come from your own side.
Exactly. It's like that manipulation, the betrayal, wanting to use others for your own gain.
It's kind of scary. But you're right, it happens all the time.
Sadly, yeah.
So we got Axel and Leela, this tiny team going up against these powerful figures.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next?
Well, this is where things get really heartbreaking.
Welcome back to the deep dive, you guys.
Yeah.
So last time things were not looking too good for Axel and Leela.
No, there is.
Right. They finally got the cure, but then they ran into those shadowy figures who want to control everything.
Mm-hmm. It's a tough situation.
It is, and it's kind of crazy how this story uses these ants to show us how, like, messed up people can be.
Yeah, it really does.
Right, like the whole wanting power no matter what.
Right, and not caring who gets hurt along the way.
Yeah, exactly. What's fascinating to me is how the story doesn't make things simple, like good versus evil.
Yeah, it's more complicated than that.
Right, Axel wants to save his colony, but the people he's up against are, like, completely selfish.
Mm-hmm. They only care about themselves.
And that kind of struggle, we see it everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Throughout history.
Right, like those people who risk everything to expose something bad.
Whistleblowers.
Yeah, them. Or, like, scientists who get in trouble because their discoveries upset people.
It takes a lot of courage to stand up for what's right.
It does, especially when you're going against powerful people.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that Axel's not like some special ant. He's not stronger or smarter than the others. He's just brave enough to do what needs to be done.
And that's why we like him.
Yeah, totally.
He's like us, just trying to do his best.
He's relatable.
Okay, so back to the story we left off with Axel and Leela facing those shadowy figures.
Right. Big showdown.
So what happens?
Well, the shadowy figures realize they can't just take the cure from Axel.
Right.
So they try to destroy it.
What?
Yeah, they figure if they keep the ants weak and divided, it's easier to control them.
That's awful. They're willing to let everyone die just so they can stay in power?
It shows how power can corrupt people.
It's a good reminder that the people in charge aren't always the good guys.
Unfortunately not.
So what does Axel do?
Well, this is where things get really intense.
Okay.
Axel realizes that the only way to save everyone is to make a huge sacrifice.
Okay, don't leave me hanging. What does he do?
The sources are a little unclear on the details.
Okay.
But basically, Axel gives his life to make sure the cure gets to the colony.
Oh, wow. That's,
It's a lot.
yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's like that classic hero story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Giving everything to save everyone else.
It's sad, but also really inspiring.
Yeah. It's both.
So he sacrifices himself. What happens next?
Well, Leela is obviously devastated.
Of course.
But she knows what she has to do.
Take the cure back.
Exactly. She flies back to the colony and the cure starts to work.
Thank goodness.
Right. And once the disease is gone, everyone finds out what the shadowy figures were doing.
And I bet they weren't happy?
No, they weren't. The other colonies realize they've been tricked and used.
Right.
And they all turn against the shadowy figures.
Wow, so the ant wars are over.
They are, but not because one side won. It's more like everyone realized that they need to work together.
That's a great message.
Yeah, it shows that even when things are really bad, people can still come together.
So we went from a heist to a plague to a war, and now everyone's getting along.
It's quite a journey.
It really is. But before we finish up, I wanted to ask you about something. You said that the sources didn't really explain how Axel sacrificed himself.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
I think they did that on purpose.
You do?
Yeah, I think they wanted us to focus on what he did, not how he did it.
That makes sense.
Right. It's about his bravery and selflessness. That's what makes him a hero.
And that's what stays with us.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the big thing you want our listeners to take away?
I think this story is about how much power one person can have and how important it is to be part of a community.
Right.
And to never lose hope, even when things look really bad.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that even the smallest actions can make a difference.
Absolutely. So, on that note, that's it for this episode of The Deep Dive.
See you next time.
We hope you enjoyed exploring the world of ants with us, and that it gave you some things to think about.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
We'll see you next time for another Deep Dive.